Welcome back, everybody, to another Productivity Like a Pro podcast episode with my dear friend Paco and our dear members inside the chat with 4 other new questions we want to tackle today. We tried to pick ones that cover all the areas: task management, digital note-taking, project management, you name it. And we will dive into digital note-taking with the first one. And that's actually something that we didn't talk so much about in the past, and I think that's pretty interesting.
Paperless movement, your productivity, your way.
How do visuals enhance note-taking, especially for complex information? And I think that's interesting, and that's something we talk a lot about when it comes to what tools do you use. Just recently, I had a discussion with one of our members about visual tools. She was using Miro and Scrintl and even Xtiles. And just by naming these 3 tools, to me, they were so completely different from each other that it was pretty clear that it needs to be talked about what different types of visual note-taking you would do, and then what tools you use in order to tackle these problems. For example, I'm using Heptabase for the deep thinking, where I have whiteboards about key elements that I want to expand over time. Also topics, I can throw my information on this whiteboard and it will expand over time. And the key here is that I have long form text also available. I can create cards with a lot of text in it and then throw it onto whiteboard and then get a bird's eye view on how everything is connected. However, that's not something that we use to tackle complex questions when we talk in a team or when we build the ICOR journey course, for example, and things like that. There we go, for example, into Miro, and also for the inner circle members there throughout the month, we are expanding on a Miro board. And the Miro is really a whiteboard where you can throw everything on there. It makes always look good, in my opinion, whatever you do there. And you can go much beyond from simply connecting information, but really visually representing what you're thinking. So, for example, let's stay with the inner circle example. When we talk about workflows that one of the member is using in the business, while the person is explaining, I can in parallel build up the workflow and the diagram and everything in Miro. And the moment the person has finished, everything is already ready. And then we have a visualized version of what was described. And then we have a complete different starting point to talk about the problem. It makes things so much clearer. And then when we go to Scrintl, as the member brought up as example, Scrintl is a hybrid again between a whiteboard and text notes and things like that. And I recently tested it. To me, it's still too clunky. It doesn't feel polished as it is for Heptabase. So to me, there's no doubt that I will stick with Heptabase. I don't know about you, Paco, if you tested Scrintl recently.
No. I didn't.
No, you didn't. And Xtiles, we looked at Xtiles, both of us, and this is a complete different type of representation. This is a card type where you can have dashboards and then have an overview of your ongoing thoughts, but it is not as free form as it would be on a normal whiteboard. It's really important to understand the different types of visual representation and then pick the right one depending on what you want to work on. So long story short, we are using Miro for these complex questions, especially if we want to talk about this in a team. In the agenda meeting, whenever we feel that we are stuck in back and forth discussions, we open up a map and then we lay it out and for everybody gets crystal clear. But Heptabase is for deep thinking and evolving maps over time. And it's a personal knowledge management area. So I'm using different visual representations there.
In my case, I want to highlight our concept of the one brain with 2 parts, because I think that it's crucial to understand the productivity system that we aim to develop by using ICOR, our methodology, because this is important. Okay, we want to create a productivity system that doesn't distinguish between our physical brain and our digital brain. That's why we need to force to use the exact same concepts and the exact same workflows, because that's what removes all the different friction points that we can suffer. And that's why most of our members and people who come here to our inner circle cohort, for instance, are struggling with, okay, because there's huge dissonance between the digital world and how their brain works. And that creates a friction point that creates all that sensation of not doing things comfortable. And by betting on this, we have to understand that we are visual creatures. The best things that we digest, okay, if we can name it that way, is visual thinking. The moment that we see something that is visual, that moves away out of text, for instance, we better understand the things. And in my case, the process that I follow is always the same. I start outlining the key elements if I'm taking notes. And the moment that I see that that outline becomes messy and I start to get lost is the moment that I move to visual thinking. And I think that we need to differentiate between those type of tools, okay? The one that are text-based as Heptabase or Screentel, because those are text-based note thinking or PKM tools, okay? That allows the user to create some kind of visual representation that is quite useful, okay? And we have to completely differentiate that type of thinking of tools that are 100% visual, like Miro, for instance, or any other mind mapping tool where you are just able to manipulate visual things and then you can add some kind of text. But the point is that at any moment of your thinking process, you should think naturally, okay, without boundaries, without obstacles, without feeling that sensation of not going through the flow, because that's what creates the real added value. The moment that your thinking process suffers any type of attack, of obstacle, then is the moment that you stop that thinking process, and then recovering that flow of thinking, it's quite difficult. So you need to quickly manipulate and change from one tool to the other the moment that you start perceiving that friction. That's what I do. I start outlining, and the moment that I think that I'm going too deep and too confusing, then I move quickly to visual. And that's one of the beautiful things about tools like a Screentel of Heptabase, that you can start manipulating visual things. But if something, for instance, an idea that is represented by a car, you want to deliver more and go deeper into that and just throw everything you got in your mind without playing with the visual that are more slower, okay, that are slower than just writing things down. That's the beautiful thing about this type of tools, okay? I didn't test the Screentel. I was one of the, initial testers when this application came out, and I always told them about this friction between the text-based and the visual thinking, because I think that in that combination, for instance, talking about the paperless movement, we take a lot of advantage talking about personal knowledge management by using Heptabase, okay? It has to be something really, really complex or something that we want to share with the team to use a 100% visual tool like Miro is. And that's important, okay? Because the moment that you just stay in that tool and you can manipulate text and visuals without any friction is the moment that your thinking process goes really fast, okay, at the speed of your brain. And that's important, okay, because our brain goes really fast. And the moment that we start stopping, changing context and things like that, our thinking process, suffers. Of course, replying to the questions, okay, visuals enhance our note-taking, especially for complex information, because it's the only way. And also it's a way of communicating the things, okay? During our cohorts or during any of our agenda meetings, the moment that we start sharing things, playing with Miro, we see how we become better communicators, okay? It's a much better way to communicate. For instance, if you need to prepare a proposal, a lecture, or something that you need to prepare to talk publicly, having that visual map, it helps a lot to understand. That's why we use it also in our YouTube channel with our videos. We use visual because that clarifies a lot what you are trying to communicate to the other person.
Yeah, exactly. I also use Heptabase to lay out the new email funnel, for example, because it was much easier to see this in a row and the different options people go through, and then zoom in and see actually the email that we will send in this moment. And that gives you the visual representation. That's really great. Then you're just one step away from creating proper workflows and automations, because when you go to tools like Zapier or Make.com or others, there you have the same types as well as a visual representation to make it easier to understand what's happening in the automation. But that is a different topic. Let's move on to the next question. The next question is, how do you manage to balance between urgent tasks and important long-term goals? And Paco, I want to make this a bit different here, as I would like to learn from you and your life experience inside one of your companies in the marketing company. You know, you're busy the whole day with managing 4 companies in parallel, and suddenly an urgent task comes in. How do you react to this, and how do you stay focused on the important long-term goals at the same time?
I think that the most important thing is creating calmly that alignment, okay, between goals, projects, or work streams, depending on how you want to achieve your goals. Remember that both project and work streams are just buckets for tasks. Okay, it's a way to create groups of related tasks. So for us, it's much easier to have that bird's eye view that gives us the sensation of the big things that we need to handle. And creating that alignment clearly, we do it quarterly, as we do in the paperless movement, being 100% sure that everything will be aligned the moment that you move into execution. Okay, the moment that you are starting executing those daily tasks, they need to belong to a project, and that project should be aligned, or it has to be aligned with a goal. That's the only way that you can forget about the long-term goals, okay, and be fully focused on the daily tasks, knowing that you are constantly aligned. That's what we call is the mental model that we have developed in ICOR, that is called PIA, that it's plan, execute, and align. And align, okay, it's that connection between goals and daily tasks. The thing is that when something urgent, that it's important to define what's urgent, because for many people, everything is urgent. Our busy professionals perfectly know, okay? Urgent is something with a big impact, okay, in the business or in any project that you are working right now. And then it's pretty easy to manage those type of urgent things because you just need to compare with the current task that you are executing and decide which one is much more urgent, okay? Because sometimes even urgent things can be delayed 1 hour, 2 hours, even for tomorrow without any problem, okay? But if it needs to be done, okay, no problem. That's why we always say that ICOR allows you to develop a productivity system that is flexible, okay? Because that's what flexibility means. It means that it's not something rigid, okay? It doesn't matter what unexpected event emerges. You are always doing the right things. And that's something that we are constantly living in a marketing agency. It's constantly things because we have systems, events, campaigns live, okay? And I'm talking about a volume of hundreds of them simultaneously. So imagine all the unexpected things that emerge constantly. But if the team is aligned, they know the direction, okay? They know their planning. That's why we always double down on explaining and emphasizing the importance of creating quarterly goals and then weekly planning and daily planning, because that creates the structure in the team so that you have crystal clear your priorities. And the moment that something urgent emerges, that's something pretty common, you know how to perfectly manage that because you have a crystal clear vision and well-defined vision of your daily planning, and based on that you put that urgent thing where it has to be done. And I think that that's the most important thing.
Yeah, nice, Paco. And you just described perfectly the two layers, our concepts and workflows, which are tool agnostic, but how does it look implemented in a real world system? I mean, maybe you can share how you handle this, the tools that you're using there, and that I use the same way, obviously, but I want to hear it from you, Paco.
The point is that, well, in my life, I have 3 different project management tools, okay? I work with Linear, with ClickUp. I'm surprised because not so many people know Linear, which for me is, I always say that it's an amazing project management tool. It started being just a ticketing tool for software developers, but they have been evolving, and little by little they are leveraging after creating an amazing and quite solid infrastructure, talking about the architecture, the technical architecture behind the tool. But in the agency, we are using project management tool that is quite unknown, but it's the cheapest I've ever found. We got there 70 users, so we need to pay attention to pricing when it comes to any software tools. And we keep it using because it works, okay? It allows us to perfectly define the goals and create that link, okay? It's a physical link where you can navigate up and down, okay? You can start with a goal, see the project that is associated and the task that is inside that project just in one screen, but you can also weigh the other way around, that it's bottom up. You can quickly see a task, the project that is connected to, and the goal. And by knowing that information, you know the impact of each task, because not all the goals are equally important. No matter that during the quarterly planning, we create a certain prioritization, okay? So that if there's a moment, because we need to help the people to decide what to bet on when real life, okay, and you're in the middle of the storm, you need to have that prioritization. That's why it's so important just to handle per quarter, just 2, 3, 4 strategic projects, better if they are just 2, because it helps the team to prioritize when they need to quickly decide between one task or the other, because something we need to understand is that it's impossible to do everything that we have previously planned. That's something that is really hard to achieve. And that's why the moment that the people of the team, not just the managers, okay, have that strategic vision, okay, that's why it's important to always share during the weekly agenda, that it's something that we do. Put the team inside that agenda meeting and tell them why things are important, because they get the sense of doing things that really matters to them and to the company. And it helps a lot to prioritize, because they know how to deal with the order of magnitude of things that happen, okay? And obviously, anything coming from client is going to be urgent for the client, for sure. He just is priorities, and that's it. But we need to reply as an agency, as a business, knowing what our priorities are, what our main goals are, the projects that really make us improve, okay, and achieve the goals that allows the business to keep running. And based on that, I think that gives that sense of urgency to the things at the right level, okay? Because that bird's eye view for the whole team, because I think that's something that we lack, talking about project management in many businesses, and we see it in our members and out there, is that the team is not aware, is not conscious of how important things are and why we do the things that we do on a daily basis, okay? And that's important. That's the real alignment. It doesn't matter that you have a tool that obviously represents that, because you can quickly see. But if you have that in mind and you reduce the noise, okay, just to 2-3 main projects per quarter, and how important are they? Just saying 1, 2, and 3, okay, that helps a lot. And for us, in an environment that it's pretty aggressive, I would say, where constantly unexpected things, even because imagine maybe we are making road shows all over the country, for instance, with 30 simultaneous events running. A lot of things are going to happen. Obviously, this is real life. So how do you handle that? How do you tell the people to really understand the people who create a task, to put the right level of urgency to that? Because whenever they are aware of what urgent really means, they start also communicating better the things, because they know that this can wait until tomorrow, and maybe just that's enough space, enough room, okay, to breathe, to keep the planning going, and then the urgent thing, the unexpected thing, can be done perfectly tomorrow without hurting the previous planning that you have done. And the moment that a whole team works that way is the moment that you can perfectly create that productivity system that balance perfectly the urgent, the real life, okay, with something that is planned, and how you are constantly moving forward to achieve those quarterly goals that are so important to keep the business running, and avoiding that typical thing of urgent things don't let important things to get done. And I think that that's important, and it's possible to combine both worlds without any problem.
Yeah, I love those insights. So you covered now the linear. You didn't mention the name of the cheap tool that you're using.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's called intervals.
Intervals, right? So that's great. You see, it doesn't matter what tool you use. It's about how they are set up and how you leverage these tools just to keep the North Star on top and everybody is aligned. That's really the key also from ICOR, to get this understanding. And then if urgent things come in, the team will defend each other from these things coming from the outside, not only just forwarding and interrupting the other people. That's all coming out of this. But now one last piece. I want to know what's for you personally as the business owner, right? So using Sansama for the task man, for the personal planning, then you go into Sansama where you planned out your week, everything incorporated, the linear, the intervals. Also, does it integrate with Sansama?
No.
Do you personally have tasks in intervals then as well?
No, I don't.
So
I just follow the team's tasks. Okay?
Yeah, okay. And then ClickUp and everything comes together in Sansama, and that's really where your planning happens. And this means when something unexpected hits you personally, then this is the place where you go and you realign and see what can be moved, what can be changed, right?
Correct. And that's there because at the end, as individuals, we need to manage our time. And the only way to manage your time is seeing everything coming together, because if not, it's impossible to create that vision of what are you going to do or what you're going to achieve this week. And especially today, I think that daily planning becomes crucial, okay? And creating that structure between morning an afternoon, for me, it's crucial. It's crucial. How you manage your time and how you manage your energy. It's the thing that will allow you to perform at your best, no matter what happens. Because imagine that you have been interrupted due to, let's say, 15 urgent things, okay? If you have decided to execute and complete those 15 urgent things, but you are 100% sure that it was the right thing to do compared to the planned things, then you're working perfectly, okay? Because there's nothing else you can do. We need to see the time constraints that we are constantly living, and the goal is just dedicating the time to the things that matter due to the circumstances, okay? And we have to take into account that in many different scenarios, we are not able to have control over the circumstances because they appear, they emerge out of the blue. But the point is having a productivity system that really allows you to perfectly live with this reality, that it's the reality that we are living, but also you being conscious of defining a strategy that also allows you to create that planning and execute those tasks that are moving towards your goal. I think that that combination is perfectly, because the moment that you have, for instance, what we call the highlight of the day is just one task that moves you towards your goal, and you are able just to be committed to that, and the rest, taking it to the stream, you can dedicate to urgent things that emerged out of the blue. But no matter what happened, keep that highlight of the day on mind and being able to complete it. That's more than enough. And also, we are talking about the stream. Normally, you don't have 15 urgent things. And if that's the case, then, okay, that's your life. You need to create a system that allows you to constantly be reactive to the things, okay? And decide when are you going to do those tasks that allows you to move your business forward, because maybe you are just moving your business forward by correctly dealing with those urgent things, because that's your position and that's allowed, you know. We have many people that think that because they have, it's like people that say, well, don't pay attention to the email. Man, there are people that are 100% of the time is just managing the email correctly. And that's their job. They are CEOs, they are or salespeople who are constantly dealing with clients. Why not? That's the beautiful thing about ICOR, that you can perfectly create a productivity system that allows you to use concepts and workflows that you are going to be able to apply, and also betting on the right tools to achieve the goals that you have previously set. And I think that the moment that you try to apply the reality of third-party people to your real life, that's a moment that systems cracks, or even worse, tools fail, because it's impossible, especially right now that there are many different positions and realities. I think that, in fact, the people that we interact with, each of them has a reality, okay, a different daily routine, a different business, a different whatever, but it's possible to control your time. That's what we want to achieve. It's being able to perfectly manage our time, okay, and resources.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing the insights there. I think it's always interesting to get real life examples as well. And Michael in the chat, he sums it up pretty good as well. He says, it is key to define what urgent is. Will a no action right now cause the system to break down? If it doesn't, it might not be urgent, but just important. Moving on to the next question. It fits right in. Is time management overrated in a world that values constant hustle? Well, this is something that annoyed me a lot working myself in big corporate, this constant busyness around me and pretending yourself being busy. And the thing, you know, whenever you ask somebody, oh, you have no idea what I have to do. And many times people just don't know what they do. That's the problem. They cannot give you a proper answer and say, well, these are my goals and these are the tasks I'm working on, and that's the reason why I cannot do this. They just say, I'm too busy to do that. Especially difficult when you're the team leader and your team member tells you that, right? And the team leader has no clue what the team member is actually hustling all the time. And this constant hustle is made something positive. That's stupid. So that's why we say busy professionals. The word busy became so negative over time that with the paperless movement and ICOR, we want to flip this again and bring it into something positive again, like the busy bees. They are busy the whole day, but they're constantly doing what they need to survive, to grow, and all these things. They all have their purpose. They don't worry about, should I do something else? And the only urgent thing that comes in, if when a bird comes in and kills the beestock or whatever, things like that, right? This is when things become urgent, or the winter is coming, or who knows, right? What happens in these bees' brains. But the thing is, busy is something good. If you're busy the whole day and you're exhausted in the end of the day, but satisfied what you achieved, then you won't burn out. Then you can sleep well. It's like doing sports on the day or things like that, where you can go to bed physically exhausted, but you did something good, something positive. The moment you are just being busy handling shallow work and answering replies and getting back to people and in the end not doing anything that is moving you and your business forward, and then you have the feeling creeps in that you are not doing anything purposefully throughout the day. In the end of the year, when you have your years speaking, talking about if you achieved your goals or not, right? This is where it manifests that you've been busy the whole year, maybe 10 hours a day, but you haven't achieved anything. And this is something that is unfortunately very common, not only from my experience working in corporate, but also with the hundreds of clients that I worked personally one-on-one before Paco joined. And now with our inner circle members, we have thousands of feedbacks that said, I'm struggling with the same things. And ICOR is really the thing that gives you this direction throughout the day with the highlight of the day. So you know there's just one task I need to complete that day to feel fulfilled and know exactly that we are moving forward with the whole business and I'm aligned with my goals. And the weekly planning and all the things that we talk about in project management. But Paco, what's your take on this?
Well, I was thinking, because I lived this quite hard. Okay, I created my first company, I think 22 years ago, close to 23 the next year. But before, I was 8 years in corporate, and 5 of them were working in consultancy companies. And there I suffered this hustle. Okay, I've been working for 17 hours for months in a row, no weekends, nothing at all, just enough time to sleep, and not even that. Okay, and at the end, performance decreases. Okay, I totally disagree about that stress, pressure, and all that stuff is the things or the assets that creates real added value and high performance. I think that the stress doesn't drive to high performance at all. It's just the opposite. Okay, I think that when a person have that sense of control, of feeling safe and sound, relax, okay, with that peace of mind, that doesn't make non-meeting deadline. You need to create soft deadlines, we can call them, okay? Being real committed to those deadlines, knowing that they are doable, okay? Put in the effort, of course, because what we want to deliver with ICOR, it's a productivity system that delivers with consistency. This is something to bet on the long term, okay? But also in the midterm, okay? And those short-term sprints and things like that, that's not good. Maybe you can make an exception, okay? And maybe say, well, we're going to give it all this week for X reason, okay? But that cannot be the system, okay? The system to deliver is being able to deliver at your best. I think that 10, 12 hours working correctly every single day, within a year, you have completely changed the things that you had previously, okay? You have achieved all your goals, you have huge move, because we can see it, okay? We can see how we progress every single day, every single way, month after month, quarter after quarter. There's a long 365 days. It's a huge amount of time that if it's managed properly, it allows you to achieve everything. I know that many people say that you can completely change your life in 5 years. I can say that just 3, doing things correctly. Okay. For instance, I met Tom just 2 years ago. There was nothing about our relationship. Okay. And now look where we are. And with that, I can share many other examples. And obviously, hard work. Yes. You are quite, I would say, tired, but not completely exhausted. You cannot achieve a moment where you get up and you are already tired. I think that that's one of the key. If we are talking about KPIs, the moment that you start waking up and you feel tired, that's the moment that you are not working correctly. And your performance is going to decrease at all levels. Talking about quantity, talking about quality, talking about everything at all. You're going to do things for the sake of it without knowing if that's right. You're going to reduce the speed to deliver the things. And at the end, it's something that is not going to work. And that's why we bet on creating that productivity system that is based on routines that you execute on autopilot. That's why we double down on those planning things, because planning gives you the sense of control, because it's not just a sense, it's a reality, okay? It's a fact. And the moment that you have control over the things and you change from being reactive to being proactive is the moment that positive feedback loop moves you away out of those negative emotions like stress, anxiety, depression, pain, okay? Because you cannot work properly in those circumstances. And the point is that the more you bet on systems and rely on things that you are just constantly working on, that's why we love the work stream approach versus the project approach. That doesn't mean that we don't have projects, but we bet a lot in work streams to achieve our goals. And if you can bet on a work stream to achieve a goal, do it. It's always much better than betting on the project side, because the project is going to have delays, it's going to put the pressure, you're going to be focused on sprints, on efforts just for one win, whereas the work stream is you just do the exact same things one after the other, and that creates that relaxation and that clarity. Okay, that's the moment that instead of dedicating 3 hours to something, you just dedicate half an hour. And those are the big wins that we are not conscious until you are aware of all the benefits of creating that productivity system behind. And if on top of that, you bet on the right tools, because that's what also ICOR enhances, okay, that it's choosing the right tools for your use case and for the productivity system that you have made, because it's you who's going to create that productivity system. The results, the outcomes, they will be amazing for sure, because we have lived that in our realities, okay? But also we have seen that through the multiples and thousands of members that we have helped to discover this approach to productivity, because that's the real productivity. And the moment that you are able to set goals that make sense, okay, that are doable, you're going to achieve them all, okay? The problem is when people have no clue about the time, that things that, for instance, that's something that I lived a lot, talking about the consultancy company, people who sell solutions without any idea about the implementation of that solution. And then it was literally impossible. It doesn't matter that I was, and a lot of people obviously, working there 17 hours a day for months without weekends and without anything at all, because you are demanding to your team something that it's literally impossible. Even if a robot will be working on that perfectly 24 hours in a row, it won't be achieved because it's something that is not possible. That's why it's important to set quarterly goals that you can assume that they are doable. Okay, I think that the moment that you set correctly those goals, then the quarter goes right. Okay, the people get motivated, the people see movement, they see progress, they feel the motivation of being closer to the goals, because that's the problem. When you create a goal setting system that is something that it's impossible to achieve, you are decreasing the motivation, because every single day far away farther of your goal instead of closer, and that creates frustration. And that's the moment that you start not taking the best out of your team, then people start to run away out of your business and your project, and then it's impossible to be productive and achieve those goals.
Yeah, that's exactly my experience. When I started in corporate, the team was overwhelmed. I was part of the team, and the first 2 years it was working more than 150%. And then I took on the challenge to help this team and my team leader back then to improve things by setting up a system, moving away from Excel sheets. And I built a ticketing system where we streamlined the recurring things that happened every day that we now call in ICOR the work streams. Right, that's what I defined then back then. And just by making these, now if you look from the outside, it's always simple, these tweaks, but it took me 3 months to implement this ticketing system that I had in mind. And the result of this was that we had a team performance increase by 60% with the same headcount. And that's something, if you put this on numbers, working in big pharma, how much these people cost per month and so on, that's a lot. And now I want to get back. We worked already more than 150%, right? And now I removed 60% from this. We are at 90%. So perfect. That's a perfect margin where you have 10% left for optimization projects, other things like that. However, when you do something like that, and a team lead decides then to put on new projects on top of that, so you end up on 150% again, this is the wrong direction then. This is what brings the demotivation of the team, because they've been suffering for so long. Then there was a solution that we over-delivered with less work, but we just had the 100% workload in the end of the day, and it gets filled up, so we are consistently again on the edge and working all these hours every day again. That brings frustration, because many things would have evolved out of a motivated team working in this area now, rather than being overloaded again with new projects. And well, it happened exactly what you mentioned. People left the team, and well, the team leader had no idea why they do this, but this is exactly what happens. And that's the warning. With great power, in this case ICOR, comes great responsibility. So don't take this away from the people. See that they are struggling and give them the relief, and then enjoy that everybody is walking the right direction, and people will from themselves will then overperform because they see what they are bringing to the table. And that is something that we encourage with ICOR as well. Hey, enjoying the content so far? So how do you feel after seeing all this? Do you think your productivity system is at this level? Take our free 3-minute quiz to find out. Whether you struggle with note-taking, PKM, task or project management, or even workflow automation, we've got you covered. Depending on your results, you'll get a tailor-made free email course starting right after you finish the quiz that will instantly level up your productivity system with laser-focused, actionable advice. Click the link in the description below and unlock your full potential. And we are personally here to help you succeed. So let's ICOR together. And I see in the chat, Mary mentioned, capital letters, a lot of positive change can even happen in a few short weeks of the Inner Circle cohort. Thank you, Mary. She's one of our current cohort. That's great to hear. And well, we haven't finished the cohort yet, so a lot more to come for sure. A lot more positive things coming for sure. All right, so let's get on to the final question. Why do so many projects fail despite using established methodologies? And when we say established methodologies, you name it, waterfall, even agile, and all these things that people implement to finally hit that deadline that they had in mind when they work on projects. And in short, it is impossible to set a proper deadline for projects. That's what it is. So if you say, this project will take 2 years. It will never take 2 years. It might take longer. Usually it does, because people always underestimate how long this will take. But it can also be shorter. So what's the point of this? You know, I sat in so many hundreds of project meetings, global project meetings, working with hundreds of people in parallel, building filling lines for medicines, packaging lines and things like that, where a lot of moving parts are involved. How the heck are you able to estimate how long this will take? Yes, you have experiences from all the individual experts in this team telling you, okay, this will take that long, this will take that long. You bring this together as a project leader and then you make the estimation, and then the management tells you, okay, you get 1 year less than what you have estimated. That's what happens then. And then people work for the 2 years. The project is half finished. They have to finish it. And operations takes over and finishes the project, you know, off budget for the next 2 years in addition. And I saw this over and over again. And there's a long red tail. Is this in English as well, I think? That comes along with this, right? When you do these things, other departments will be stressed out by working on projects they are not supposed to work on. Well, many things that happen from this. But that's where I already back then had a feeling this never works. I never saw one individual project that would have been completed as it was estimated. And it is already hard if you just have a single task and you try to estimate how long this will take. So how should it be possible to estimate things like this where external vendors are involved? So many things can happen, and you're not allowed to add a buffer time in there and buffer budget or things like that. This is where there was a downward spiral where the projects consistently failed. The team members were blamed, the project manager was blamed, and so on, where this wording came up with KPIs like watermelons on the outside green, in the inside red, where the project leaders always tried the best to deliver that, oh yeah, we are on track, we will do this. And then 2 months before the project finishes, they say, no, we need another 2 years, suddenly, right? So that's why I don't believe in waterfall projects. We also moved on to agile and scrum and all this beep. So it doesn't work. But why does ICOR work, Paco? Huh? How did we manage to overcome this obstacle?
First off, I would like to say that I think that those methodologies don't work because they are just theoretical frameworks. Okay,
Yeah.
I think that they've been never put to the test. They are outdated. I mean, they've never been updated to how we work today, and the world evolves and every single year faster. And that's why ICOR is constantly evolving. And when we thought about how to communicate ICOR and deliver ICOR to the busy professional community, we decided to bet on a membership, okay? Because we understood that productivity is an endless game, okay? You need to always be updating the things. Obviously, we created a solid foundational core, okay? That is the basis, okay? The main things to have that holistic view of productivity, but then we need to constantly evolve, update, and for instance, if we compare the current courses with the book that we're going to launch the next week or just 10 days from now, there has been subtleties, but those subtleties compound through the time. If you take, I don't know, GTD, for instance, that it was delivered in 2000, I remember when that was launched, and you try to apply nowadays, GTD is not going to work. It was a totally different environment. I don't know, at that moment, there weren't any mobile devices, for instance. I don't know, just to say the first thing that comes to mind. And that's the moment that, because there's something that this is something personal, okay? I hate theory, okay? Lack of pragmatism, lack of making things happen, okay? I'm an achiever, okay? But I think that we need just the minimum amount of theory to put things into practice. And that's what we deliver in ICOR. It was that minimum amount of concepts and workflows so that you can get an overall idea of how to approach productivity. And then you are constantly aware of the updates, the evolving things, the changing subtleties, because at the end, subtleties are what matter, are the sum of different nuances, and we constantly see that during our cohort. It's by explaining the same thing from different perspectives, live, and the people asking in real time how they get the point of these concepts that are so abstract, okay? And especially when you need to apply them to your daily work. And that's why I think that ICOR works. First off, because it's constantly evolving and adapting to the things that emerge. Tom, myself, and the team are constantly aware of different tools, of different approaches, of different methodologies. Whenever we were pioneers talking about AI, that now everybody seems to be using AI. We were using AI when nobody was talking about that, and just a few tools starting doing things like that. That's just an example of how complex this is and how we save time for the busy professional, because we think that this is so complex that busy professionals cannot dedicate the time to be aware of all these things, because even here at the paperless movement, there are things that we missed because it's impossible to be on top of everything, okay? And you need to receive that distilled information, those filtering, but based on things that work in real life, because that's where I think that it doesn't happen with those laboratory methodologies that are just, things that work on paper. As always, any proposal works on paper. That's something, for instance, that we in the agency, we see proposal of competitors or whatever that perfectly work on PowerPoint or the presentation of the proposal. But when you need to put them into practice, you need to make something that it's a reality. Talking about all aspects, okay? It works. It's inside your budget. It's operational. The way your company works, it works with how your brain works and your brain processes operate. It's a mix of everything. That's why you need to have that holistic view to approach productivity differently. That I think that that's the lack of thing, talking about all the methodologies. And also because we cover what a productivity system end-to-end is, okay? There are many methodologies out there that are just focused on, for instance, knowledge management or just task management, or maybe some others in project management. But that's not the reality of a busy professional. A busy professional needs to manage everything. They need to know how to capture information. They need to know how to make that information useful so that they can create actions that drives them towards their goal. They need to know how to manage their time. They also need to know how to manage and communicate with the team. And that's what ICOR brings to the table. It's that famous quote that we say, it's a productivity system end to end, okay, that covers everything you need from the starting point, the input stage of ICOR, until the last one, that it's a refine, where we double down and insist on that refinement that you need to do. We are constantly aware of how we can polish our work streams. This tool that appears, maybe we split this workflow and then use just this specific tool that is really amazing for doing this certain feature. And then we go back to the other tool that we were using previously once we have received the right outcome. That's the complexity of system, and how we have make it achievable by creating something that is sequential, that is the ICOR journey, that just following step by step the methodology. That, by the way, that's something that some other methodologies never explain. I mean, they express, the overall concept of the methodology, but how the heck someone who is not a guru of productivity or who has not dedicated decades to this world understand that? Because whenever I go to a topic that I have no clue, I need that sequentiality. Okay, I need to understand the main concepts. I need that filter information that allows me not to dedicate years to understand something, but weeks, or if something complex, months. And I think that that's what ICOR brings to the table, and that's what creates the difference, talking about other methodologies, plus being fully focused on the reality of busy professionals, that I think that's quite important.
Yeah, and that's why we say that ICOR is a business-proven methodology. That's something that other methodology based on students' experience and creating a productivity solution that suddenly should work in the business world just don't work. They are not put to the test through all the businesses that we run our methodology through to get to the point that we have right now with the methodology. However, Adrienne in the chat, she brings up the question now. I'm interested in hearing more regarding ICOR related to Agile and Scrum. Why do you say that these frameworks are outdated, Paco? And Michael actually echoes this in his message. Adrienne would love to hear this too. So yeah, we talked a lot about that it is different to the other methodology, but what in specifics does it differentiate to the Agile and Scrum?
The point is that we haven't said that specifically Agile and Scrum are outdated. Okay, it's important.
We were talking about GTD in this case, yeah.
Applying those, and that's what we perceive from our clients, that trying to apply those methodologies that are, let's say, too general, okay, to the reality that is not the same as a industry company versus a software company works, okay? And they try to apply the exact same thing using the same formula because they don't really understand well the specification of those methodologies. Maybe also because the information is spread all over the world. There are interpretations. There are people who explain their use case, and then there's not a right and only path to follow to implement those methodology, because people don't understand that maybe even talking about ICOR, you don't need to take the whole methodology and try to apply. Maybe you just work with certain stages of your system or productivity or whatever, and then you take just a portion of that methodology to improve a certain and a specific area. It's exactly the same with tools. People try to use a tool for everything or use all the features that a tool brings to the table instead of just paying attention to the things that really resonates to their use case, their specific scenario, and trying to implement that.
Yeah, I just want to add here, again, from a real life example, myself working in corporate, and I initially talked about my experience with the waterfall method doing projects, right? Bad experience. Later, after 6 years in the corporate, then we got introduced to Agile and Scrum. I perfectly remember I was already a team leader back then, and I was in this kickoff, conference that we had inside the company talking about Agile and Scrum and how we're now creating squads and no longer teams and all these things. And I was sitting there, and the presenter, which was also a person working inside the company, said, well, I have no idea how this actually should work and how it makes sense right now in our specific use case, but we have to make it work. And this was a pivotal moment. Well, back then it was promoted that Spotify is using these methods, and that's why it's proven that it works. And now we are taking it on as well. And I had to laugh out loud because one of my colleagues was sitting next to me showing me a blog post saying that Spotify now changed the way how they work because it didn't work for them. And then that's exactly what you said, Paco. Then Spotify is a software company, and now you want to make this with a brick and mortar company, building filling lines and things like that, where you have a lot of moving parts in there and different departments, because it becomes really complex. And then you try to wrap over whatever they are successful with to make it work. So we ended up, after 2 years of implementing this new way of project work, with simply implementing buzzwords. That was it. Instead of teams, it was squads. You weren't allowed to say team. There's no problem. It's a challenge. The things was going on. The Scrum meetings, right? We had the Scrum Masters and so on. In the end, we had to follow rules that were adding a lot more meetings that we had before, and not clear at all, because there were suddenly roles in there where people were working just being, a Scrum Master, things like that. And that's where, if there's no clear understanding of what the real issue is inside the company, why things are not working based on the business workflows and processes, you don't see the optimization potential without looking at this. Now, just having a feeling the company is not working on it, performing at its best, and it's one of the richest companies in the world, so something is going right, okay? But not understanding the fundamentals and just picking up the next hyped methodology and trying to wrap it over because it's decided by somebody sitting on the other end of the world. And that's the other thing, there are dozens of sites of this company worldwide. So complete different cultures, complete different ways how people work in these countries. And now one country is taking on a methodology and try to apply this to a different country exactly the same way. Even this doesn't work because how people work. Between Germany and Spain, man, it's already the same thing. if you want to work with a Spanish guy between 2 and 4 o'clock, you might be out of luck, right? So that's the thing, and that's where we start high performing here. Yeah. That's really something that we realized as well. It's not only just understanding the fundamentals of the business and how to wrap this over, but also the cultural differences. And that's where getting back to all the methodologies that you find also on YouTube and all the templates that you find for Notion and things like that, those are very specific for specific use cases, and it usually is a very narrow field where you can apply these things. That's where with ICOR we tried to be as flexible as possible, as it can be applied to all the places. What we do, instead of introducing new buzzwords, except the mental models where we had to give it a word, but within these mental models you see we are using common wordings. We are using project, we are using task, goals, but we give it a definition. Urgent tasks. What is urgent, right? These are the things that I applied in the corporate there, and they were X times more productive, made the team more productive than any other buzzwords that was provided by somebody telling me I have to do a Scrum meeting now and we have to do Agile and do sprints. Man, these sprints from a software company, it might work in these areas, but not in a work environment that we've been in, and where you constantly have switched topics as well. We've been working on 50 projects in parallel with 5 people, and you cannot do a sprint on one of the projects for a whole week because you have to switch the projects every time and then, right? That's sprints you can do when you can stay focused on one topic for a specific time and then really push hard. But in these environments, you cannot just stop everything else and focus on one thing. So there needs to be a much more flexible way to do this and understand the prioritization and things like that. So that's where in the project management, like a pro course of the ICOR journey, there we talk about the team communication system. There we talk about what is a priority, how do you communicate. We give the output elements, which is projects, goals, tasks, things like that. So that's where we think, well, we don't think it. We got confirmed by so many companies in the meantime that this just works because we go in with the same terminology they're already using and just give this a definition how to look at the things from a different perspective. So that makes it so effective that there's not something people have to learn, but they have to understand what they are already using on a daily basis. And that's the big difference, I think.
Well,
I
and the
hope
point is also that we cannot start comparing things that are not the same. I mean, Agile is I wouldn't say that it's a methodology, it's a philosophy, okay, or a mindset or whatever, okay, because not everything is perfectly specifically defined. I would say that the Scrum is the methodology or the framework, okay, to implement the Agile principles. But the point is that they just cover part of the project management area, okay? They don't care about how you capture information. I mean, that productivity system end to end, we are comparing two things that they are called methodology that are related to the world of productivity because Agile and Scrum are related to project management, but you cannot compare. It's like people trying to ask to us, what's the difference with second brain? They are starting to make comparison between things that you cannot compare one to each other. The point is understanding each methodology and seeing if you can apply them to your reality, because things that we see is that, I don't know, people coming from industries, they try to base their project management using Agile, and that was initially designed for software development. Mainly, the point is that it's so global, okay, and general, that you can start applying certain principles to different areas. But the point is that the scope and the problems that they try to solve are completely different. And that's what we need to make people understand, okay? What is useful ICOR for? And based on that, if they are demanding that type of methodology because it solves the current problems and struggles that they are dealing with. And that doesn't mean that they cannot start applying ICOR and keep using the Scrum framework because it's working already in their company. There are things that are compatible, and exactly, I like to make the comparison because maybe between methodologies, because here, what is a methodology? What is a philosophy? What is a framework? You know, those are subtleties, but it's exactly the same with software. And I think that there is where people can better understand the approach to productivity, okay? That it's possible to make the best use possible of each tool, okay? And I think that that's the exact same about ICOR and any other methodology, is trying to understand what that methodology tries to solve and see if those problems, the ones you are facing daily. And that's the thing.
Yeah, great. And thanks for the feedback in the chat. Adrienne said after my comment, yes, these frameworks seem to have infiltrated many companies and teams are forced to make it work. Exactly. Michael says, totally agree. You can't change a hierarchical culture into an agile culture over a period. And that's exactly what I explained and suffered from as well. And what you said, Paco, Adrienne says, great job distinguishing Paco, my hero. Well, you're my hero.
Well,
too.
no.
Very
Hero,
well.
no. Yes. A productivity nerd.
that makes you even more a hero that you're saying, no, I'm not a hero. No, I fully agree. The distinguishing, it needs to be distinguished from this. And I just think back, that's exactly the place, right? Even it wasn't named ICOR back then in corporate when all this agile came to the place. I was still implementing these things like was this a priority? Rolling out a single source of truth concept. It was independent. In fact, I was taking over a second team when I rolled out these things called Agile Plus. So they recognize that I'm enhancing the Agile that we had there. And the Agile Plus team was actually the leadership team that I was leading then, helping them improving this Agile Scrum concept with the single source of truth principles and things like that. That's why they called that didn't come from me. They said, we have an Agile Plus group and you should lead it now. And this was the idea behind that we enhance what we have already in place with the things that actually help the company to move forward. And that was mainly the single source of truth principle that I implemented in this team, together with this team in the company. All right, everybody.
I also think just one thing to add, because I think that it's important talking about approach, and I think that to anything within a company or even life, that we try to just decide between this thing and the other thing, trying to eliminate just thinking black and white. And I think that if you approach things differently, saying, I'm dealing with these problems. Can this type of things help me to solve any of these problems? And maybe a combination, taking the best out of each different approach, allows you to achieve that destination, because the point is that people are dealing with a complex thing, and trying to solve complex things is not just a matter of just one solution. Sometimes is picking up things. Obviously, that's why we have created this productivity end-to-end concept, because we know all the problems that VC professionals are dealing with, and we have tried, and I think that successfully, solve all the different things, how they capture information, how they manage, how they drive that into interaction, how they manage their time, how they connect goals with daily tasks. All those things are the main problems that we try to solve, offering one thing that they can follow sequentially, but because we were fully focused on that reality. The agile people who designed that weren't paying attention at all at that. What they wanted to do is, how the heck do we develop software better, faster, and making it work, And based on that, well, then you can find a Scrum and many other approaches, okay? So I think that that's important too.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, thank you very much for being with us. Today it was a longer session, but I think it was well worth it as we dove a lot deeper into the different topics. And we will catch you up next week, actually, on the next Monday. Have a good time, guys.
Okay, see you. Thank you so much.